Oh, I can't believe David Shapiro is quitting. I did not see this coming. I'm not handling it well. I'm going to have to work through it with you later. Meta launched an AI-generated video creator. The space is getting really crowded. I've been watching this video over and over again. I guess it's a mod for Cyberpunk, but I'm not quite sure if that's a lie or not. Researchers got robot dogs to work with such precision they can now actually climb ladders. Squishy dogs are the AI equivalent of fidget spinners, and it's ruining my life. AI-based text to 3D is now coming to Steam. Researchers have discovered a new phenomenon. They're calling it the law of weakest link in language models. And a big L for the world, drone-on-drone warfare is now a thing, and it does include spitting fire at one another. There's a new wearable device that uses machine learning to figure out if you're dehydrated. Time to get more water? Just ask the device. Doing cat-cow all day might not help your back pain as much as reducing inflammation. Engineers have conducted the first in-orbit test of swarm satellite autonomous navigation. In like a crazy biological thing, the circulatory system of an old mouse and a young mouse were combined together, so like the blood flows between the two animals, and it actually accelerated the aging in the young mouse and reduced the aging in the old one. Don't tell the billionaires. I think they're going to come for our blood. In partially related news, Elon Musk just held a party at the old OpenAI headquarters. And we're going to talk about why the question of whether or not big tech is harming society is hard to answer, mostly because big tech can influence the answer, not because we can't do the research. But first, let's check Alan's conservative countdown to AGI. And although it is still hovering at 81%, there was another update to it. So Dr. Allen added to his 81% number this video. And honestly, it's as good of a prediction as any for how do we really know when we've had AGI. Well, that's when some OpenAI employees suggested that you'll be able to tell we've achieved AGI internally when we take down all of our job listings. Like all this stuff about a robot that can make a cup of coffee or whatever that Steve Wozniak was saying, like, no, when OpenAI has no job listings. That is the new Turing test. That is the measurement of AGI. But unfortunately, when that happens, my favorite AI YouTuber of all time doesn't look like he's going to be saying anything about it or covering it or giving opinions or any of it anymore because David Shapiro is quitting AI YouTube. Definitely caught me off guard. Did not expect it. Still processing it. Not sure how I feel, but definitely not happy. I mean, I am happy. Like, he's obviously just a human, and like, I want a good life for him. So like, I'm very happy that he's doing what he wants. Like, you got to be brave to throw away something that is actually working. I mean, he has a lot of subscribers. He's got a good following. His Discord's active. His school community's active. He's always forward thinking and like driving conversations, and I just think it's going to be a big gap with him gone now. But I guess like he said in this video, he feels like he's started something and that he doesn't have anything else to contribute. And honestly, if he's feeling good and he wants to go be a more creative writer, we only have one life to live, so certainly more power to him. I just hope he's happy. That matters more than everything else. But I will absolutely miss his content. I looked forward to his posts all the time. He was really, really kind to me. Like, he's invited me to be on his podcast a few times. My channel was totally dead in the water for like almost a full year, and I think it was a little bit of a spark that he gave me, like promotional wise, that like really got something in the algorithm going where now I actually kind of can grow on my own. So super grateful for that. Like, he responded to emails and gave me a chance to like throw my voice into his audience when nobody else would, and that was awesome. But man, I really think David Shapiro, if he would have stuck with it, would be in the millions of subs in another year or so. And you know, as AGI really starts to influence the whole world and we have big conversations about universal basic income, I thought he was going to be like maybe a major player and like really make a big impact in that way. So kind of bummed, actually. There's many other smart people, like he says, out there that are doing great things. So I would say I don't know what to think, but he is still creating. Like, he's passionate about creating fiction for the most part. So this book is called Heavy Silver. It's available now. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles. From what I understand, he's going to keep creating books and stories and maybe more fiction, something he's really passionate about. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of really interesting insights in the content that he's building. And if he wants to take his audience in a different direction, I think that would be great too. I mean, I'd follow him into more fictional stuff too. I sometimes love sci-fi, and I think he's got a great mind for it. So hope that works out.
But I'm getting out of AI. It feels pointless to me. And it's also misaligned with what I actually care about.
Also, this part of the video where he talks about how hormones might be influencing your thoughts, like, I do really super strongly believe that the brain confabulates a lot of things that you like and don't like based on hormones that are kind of outside, not outside of your control, but based on, I don't know, like what hormones, like from what you're eating, how you're living, how you're exercising, how your social relationships are. Because I know when I'm feeling like an upset stomach, sometimes for like a food reasons, then I'm pointing at people being like, oh, all these things are going wrong in my life, and that's what's making me angry, when it's really not. It's like my brain's putting logic behind it, but it's actually coming from just a physical spot. So I'm really happy that his anxiety just dropped away, and then he felt like, oh, I should be spending my life doing something creative instead of just worrying about AI or whatever. So all right, enough of that. Good luck, David. To David Shapiro, I can't wait to read your next book. So long, and thank you for all the fish. So Meta has now thrown their hat into the ring with the newest AI model called Meta Movie Gen, and they claim that this is the most advanced media foundation model to date. Now, to back up those claims, they have released a bunch of videos that were created with this model, and they are arguably up there, as good as Kling, maybe even as good as some of the Sora demos we've seen. But also, like Sora, it does not seem like it's publicly available for all of us to play with, which always is a bummer. You know, like I hate to compare the stuff that we can't touch with stuff that we can, because how do I really know, you know? Like, you're not cherry picking. But if we assume that they're cherry picking and making many generations and picking the best, here is what the best look like. And that's pretty darn good. This child is leaving real marks in the sand. They're running at a pace that feels natural, like a camera would be moving, and all of the depth seems correct to me, including the kite, right? Yeah, I guess, kite could do that. And look, the kite stays in front of the little girl's hat when she's running. I mean, the fact that you can actually upload a photo of a woman like this and it animates her in a completely fictional setting. A woman sitting on the grass of a pumpkin patch. She's wearing a scarf and holding a cup. The background is filled with rows of pumpkins. Can you imagine what media is going to be like as soon as this is released, and maybe a generation or two after that, where everything just feels truly video realistic? I mean, I'm just going to take a photo of my face and then make up a story, I guess, about me being in like a mountain in India and like fighting with a dragon or something, and then just post that to YouTube. Anyone can do that. They can imagine anything and upload potentially anybody's photo and make that feel real. I mean, talk about the democratization of Hollywood, but actually so much more than that. And then if we see all these AI updates like coming to YouTube where you can actually change languages on the fly and it just rearranges the way the mouth works but still keeps the rest of the image the same, and it's like, I don't know, it's just what we are living through is really insane if you take a second to step back and think about it. I mean, look at this guy. How do I know he's a scientist? What if he's not a scientist at all? Here he is, like, playing with a beaker. He looks like a scientist. This woman, maybe she's scared of jaguar or cheetahs. I'd be scared out of my mind if I was DJing next to that thing with no fence. Are you kidding me? But in the future, I could look so brave. Imagine everybody on Instagram would be like, look at Dylan just hanging out with cheetahs. This guy's so brave. How do I know this woman's into horses? Fake news. There's no way that guy drinks alcohol. That's a sober man. That's one of those completely sober people. Although he might wear that hat. It's questionable. Yeah, he looks like a dog guy. I'll buy that one. What the hell kind of animal is that? Is that a hybrid? A lemur? Oh, it's a baby bear? I guess that could be what baby bears look like. But man, it's pretty interesting. I mean, the way that her hand and fingers moves here and stays behind the easel is pretty realistic. There's some awkwardness in just how steady she's holding this arm for some reason. Like, the true motions are not perfect. It's Uncanny Valley stuff, but getting close to bridging that Uncanny Valley. Creating sound effects and soundtracks is another really powerful way this multimodal model works. I mean, for it to recognize that water and like just put this epic music, because like that's what you need, epic music, when you're standing at a ledge of anything, right? Anyone on a ledge needs epic music. Like I was recently in Costa Rica and I went to this ledge where I could see an active volcano, and there was no music for everyone else, but in my head, full epic. It was literally Lord of the Rings in my head, just me standing there holding that safety bar. And these fireworks are so impressive. Just like you can actually hear them explode at the right time. Dang, man. Tell me if this is real or not. Like I'm just cruising Instagram like always, feeling guilty about not doing real work. And I come across this. It says video games are now indistinguishable from reality. Cyberpunk with mods. And it says reality, nope, Cyberpunk 2027 with ray tracing and mods running on a 4090. I'm going to assume it's real, but just to be honest, it doesn't feel like a video game to me. Now, for a real person to be filming this and driving like this seems crazy and maybe impossible. So that alone makes me think that it is CGI. But also, isn't the cyberpunk world supposed to be like more futuristic? And look at the way that it goes underneath these lights and the reflection is actually on the motorcycle. Are ray tracing mods that good? Like if I pause it and try to read some of these signs, it's hard to tell. I mean, they kind of look like they could be words, but it's just passing so fast with motion blur. But yeah, I know all these streets from memory. I love CP so much. Yeah, this is you can tell it's fake because he's not dead. Yeah, that's the only thing that makes me know that it's not real. Wildly inaccurate, but looks cool. I would not have believed it if I didn't recognize some of the streets. 1,000 likes, that's crazy. So if you've been preparing for the AI apocalypse and you've been thinking, okay, if one of those robot dogs like breaks down my door and comes for me, I'll climb up a ladder to get away from it. That is out the window now. You need to redo your zombie apocalypse plan because of, yeah, this. Look at that, walking right up those steps. Now, if you look close, in this case, they actually modified the foot. It's kind of got this like U-shaped thing that it can use to lock on. But honestly, there's no reason why one of these robot dogs couldn't just go get one of those if it needed to climb up steps, because it can still walk like normal. So you can see first they designed that hooked ending, right? Both compressive and tensile forces to the ladder to stabilize its center of mass while climbing. Look, then they just put it in one of those simulations and just had it climb up, you know, trillions of ladders. They have another model that's an AI that's looking to see if it correctly walked up the ladder to then give it feedback, and it just goes in like this reinforcement loop, teacher, student, teacher, student. Till it figured out how to climb, and then they just brought it into the real world, and now it freaking climbs. 90% success rate on real ladders? Look at that thing. Oh, when comparing the policy to a non-hooked version, it looks like it can still get up the ladder sometimes, though. I mean, it's struggling mightily, but gosh, even without those hooks on the end, it did climb up the ladder. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't see that before when I was like prepping for this. I didn't realize that even without the hooks, it could still get up. Oh yeah, and what would one of these videos be without some human yanking on it inappropriately? All right, look, I hate to bring you back to the Pika updates, but I am like really getting kind of the squishy ball vibes. What are they called? Like stress ball vibes from some of these videos that are completely all over the internet now. Because Pikalabs has that new like squish, push, pinch, pull effects. Look what they are doing to cute dogs. It's like how when you see a cute dog, you just want to like get in there and grab it, you know, like cute aggression, but you actually squeeze them into like Play-Doh. It's like, you know what? It's just like your little thing there, your little cute thing. You just, oh my gosh, just want to pet you and squeeze you. It's like what I imagine petting puppies is like. Little Doge dog there, Shiba Inu. They're too cute to be squished like that. I know, but you're just petting them and they squish. Let's see who gets triggered. Triggered. It would be two, that little pug. I want to squish him too. Just grab his little face there. Just. All right, so there's this new game that is on Steam right now. It is called Dreamworld, the Infinite Sandbox MMO. And this game's looking pretty unique to me. Like, I'm not a huge gamer, so maybe there's also some stuff like this out there, but it's the first time I've come across an AI that's like text to 3D asset generation that allows players to create 3D models from text prompts, and it just is kind of in there, right? So they're working with Meshi, which is, I guess, from what I understand, the best, text to 3D creator out there. I mean, I guess we've seen some stuff with Roblox and I guess the new Unreal Engine stuff. So I don't know how robust that is or how available all of that is, but Dreamworld seems like it's got that creativity of Minecraft with that multiplayer scale of World of Warcraft. It's all hosted on this single shared server. And the founder of this company worked for Google, Meta, and Apple at different points in his history. So from these demos, it looks kind of cool. I mean, imagine you're just in these empty environments and you just start typing in what it is that you want to play, plugging into the Meshi API in the background. Right. And arguably maybe this isn't like ready for prime time yet. This is kind of an alpha or a beta version. But to me, there's no question that this is how the average game will play in the future. I just don't know about these predefined worlds. I think everybody's going to want just kind of Dungeons and Dragons, but gamify everything. I mean, when I grew up playing like N64 and like Final Fantasy VII, I was not thinking to myself, oh, I'll just like create a new character. But if I had had tools like this when I was young and playing games like that, I think that's a much more natural route to go. Let's talk about a newly discovered law. Well, they're not laws, but we're calling it the law of weakest link. So this is from researchers at Meta that were looking at large language models and why they struggle with complex tasks. And they basically come to the conclusion that they struggle with complex tasks because they're always held back by whatever their weakest skill is, the weakest link, right? That's why they're calling it that law. So then they thought, okay, when we look at a large language model, how do we figure out what the weakest link is so that we can start improving that through feedback? And that's why they created a new benchmark that's called cross-eval, which tests models on different skills like programming, reasoning, stuff like that. And then both as individual skills and then in combinations, because sometimes you're good at them both separately, but when you put them together to solve a problem, that's where it fails. So there's many layers to how it's testing these various skills. And those are the benchmarks that they found that when all the skills were combined, the overall performance was often dragged down by the weaker skills. So the researchers recommend that AI developers should focus on improving the weakest skills to optimize overall performance on complex tasks. All right, so we're going to talk about drone-on-drone crimes. So one recent Ukrainian innovation has been building counter-drone ramming drones that literally knock Russian drones out of the sky. I mean, a swarm of drones, I don't really know how you take something like that down. Like, you can hit it with a net, and you're going to zap it with lasers, maybe? So I guess, yeah, you just fly other drones at them. A swarm of drones, is that like where the future is going? And then to add another layer on it, this article from Ars Technica actually talks about how drones now spray 2,500 degrees Celsius thermite streams. So yeah, fire is part of this. They're calling it Dragon's Fire. So videos have been circulating on Telegram and X, and yeah, you can see for yourself. This is, I mean, maybe if it was like firefighting or something where you were like, okay, I'm going to make a controlled burn over here so that we can stop a wildfire. But considering these are all military things, like, is pretty ugly stuff, man. I mean, I understand war is war, and like if you don't do it, then the bad guy will, and maybe they'll use that leverage to control you. But like, you just have to think if aliens are looking at Earth right now, they're just like, wait, what are you doing? Why do you need that invention? Okay, so this drone type is allegedly called the Dragon, and it's said to feature thermite, a mixture of metal powder, usually aluminum, and metal oxide, in this case said to be iron. Then when the thermite mixture is ignited, it undergoes a redox reaction that can release enormous amount of heat energy and can burn anywhere and it can get really, really hot. So right after that, maybe this is a good thing to talk about. There is a new wearable that is powered by machine learning, and it will tell you when you're dehydrating. I mean, what we just talked about would do a lot more than dehydrate you. So maybe that's a little bit of a stretch there, but I don't drink enough water. I live in like a really hot desert. I'm Nordic. I'm like, from Sweden and Denmark, and like I am not meant to be in the sun, and I get dehydrated so fast. And throughout my life, I've experimented with like setting alarms to remind me to drink water, to like carrying around one of those sort of jug things. And for the most part, I just don't drink enough water. So I would, but I also wonder, like, do I really need the 8 glasses, or is there a way you could like measure? Yeah, I mean, I know like if your pee is kind of yellow, it's like you're probably not drinking enough. So that's like the only thing I sort of use as a measurement. But this is a new device. It's a wearable sweat and hydration monitor that's designed to protect workers in physically demanding jobs from dehydration. So it's worn on the bicep, which makes sense. Imagine you're like a Disneyland Mickey Mouse character or something, and you're just out there in like the California sun. You're in some like costume, being all super animated, probably sweating like crazy in there. And this device would track sweat volume, and it would start alerting the user to rehydrate before dehydration impacts performance or safety. The AI part of it that's kind of interesting, it's a machine learning that was providing personalized feedback from a data set that was analyzing sweat patterns. So they collected sweat volume and composition, the body weight before and after exercise, physiological data like heart rate and movement, and then hydration status came from a urine analysis that would be one of the the teaching markers of the AI, but they wouldn't need that just to work. And then the environmental conditions that the device is in when it's on the arm. So yeah, hopefully that'll help. Hydration is just one of those things. Like we, kind of an easy fix if we just think to do it, we build a pattern to do it. And a device like this, especially if you're in one of those environments where you are outdoors, you're really not thinking about your hydration, you're focused on your work. Like, I think it's a cool device. All right, next let's talk about reducing inflammation, because on this channel I want to talk more about longevity and feeling good, and especially with like that David Shapiro news is really interesting to me, especially the fact that it's connected with him and how he had anxiety and kind of GI issues, and then he was able to fix that and all of a sudden felt better and wanted to do something new with his life. I do get the sense that inflammation, like something about the American diet, like seed oils and pollution or plastics or something like that, is making us all at this like low level inflammation, and it's just making us all kind of angry. We're like typing on Twitter, I hate everything in the world. Everybody's got anxiety. The world's always falling apart. There's some evidence that it's leading downstream to I think even we did an article a while ago where it's like neurological disorders might even be sort of like lifetime inflammation problems. And now maybe back pain, like you think, oh, my spine, it's how I sit, my posture, which it still could be. But here's some evidence that reducing inflammation might be one of the keys to treating chronic back pain. So this comes from an interesting review of 33 studies that were looking at people who had these disc problems and their backs didn't hurt. Okay, so a lot of cases, that people with back pain have these discs that are, I guess, misaligned or something that are causing the pain. But how do you explain all the people that have that same problem, but they don't feel it? Well, maybe it's like the way that those discs are changed, or maybe there's actually something else that contributes to the pain, like inflammation. Well, a recent review of existing research provides valuable insights. In short, elevated inflammation may be leading to more disc generation and a higher likelihood of experiencing prolonged pain. So if these discs like move, they describe how disc slipping and stuff is a little bit of a misnomer. You can read in the article about that. But basically, when this does happen, there is a part of the body that has to fix it, right? And that's where the inflammation, the immune response is kicking in. And if the inflammation goes on for way longer than it should, then all of a sudden those things lead to prolonged pain. So in theory, like a healthy body might have a disc slip, the inflammation process fixes it and then just stops the pain and just fixes it. So they found that healthier, active individuals tend to recover faster because their bodies manage inflammation better, not just because the disc gets better. So treating back pain often focuses on improving overall health through regular exercise, staying active, managing lifestyle factors like sleep and stress, rather than just relying on surgery or medication. All right, now engineers conduct their first in-orbit test of swarm satellite autonomous navigation. If you remember in the last video, we talked about that robot where it's like hand could just like detach and like crawl and go get something and jump back on. Imagine if a bunch of hands use swarm navigate. This whole idea of AI and swarm navigation is like slept on, guys. Like you should be, or we should, it's going to change the world. And there's going to be no, I mean, I just hope they're not doing bad things, but I don't know. But it's like, here we are, Stanford researchers have just pulled off the first ever test of an autonomous swarm of satellites in orbit. So instead of relying on large, expensive single satellites, these are smaller satellites. They work together using visual data shared through a wireless network. And in the experiment, which they were calling Star Fox, like throwback to the video game, 4 small satellites were able to navigate using only cameras. They needed no GPS, and this is a big deal because it could make the future of space missions more flexible and cost effective. And it just kind of blows my mind that these systems are using the angles between where they're positioned with the stars and the other satellites to process individual algorithms. They only really know their component. They know how, like ants, they know they have a signal and they can sense and they can make a few decisions, but like individual pieces, they come together to collectively solve a problem that the individual pieces don't really know. That's how they're tracking and guiding their movement, like individually, piece by piece. And then as a whole, that makes it a game changer for space exploration, and it just makes them so resilient and so autonomous that we should be aware of it. You can imagine something like Elon's Starlink. Maybe they just autonomously reorganize themselves if one gets broken and everybody keeps being able to make their calls and getting data. Like, I don't know. Obviously, a lot of military things, a lot of GPS things. All right, back on Earth. It's about to get weird. Explain this research. You have to imagine, unfortunately, 2 mice that have been like surgically connected to one another. There's an old mice, there's a young mouse. The way I kind of imagine it is you just peel back the skin, I guess, and maybe parts of the body, and you just kind of sew them all together so that the blood's flowing between the two. It's described as physically connected at the skin, usually along the sides, and this allows their blood to mix, but they still remain separate individuals. Okay, so that is called heterochronic parabiosis. And when they did this, it was shown that young blood can reverse aging in older mice, while older blood accelerates the aging in younger mice. I think this is something Brian Johnson did too. Let me check real quick. Yeah, see, Fortune covered it. This guy's a billionaire tech mogul or whatever, and he decided that he was gonna swap his blood out with his 17-year-old son. It's back to the study. Researchers thought maybe the youthful blood factors, like this thing called GDF11, were beneficial. Seems like that's not what's happening. The new focus has shifted into reducing harmful substances. So maybe there's something that builds up in older blood that when it's removed just makes you feel younger, work better. So there's some therapies that are starting to be explored. The study suggests that maybe it's the improved mitochondrial function. Maybe it's the reduced inflammation. So the studies are suggesting that this might be working through a few mechanisms. It might be improving the mitochondrial function. It could be reducing inflammation, could be preventing the cellular senescence. So I'm sure scientists will be teasing out a lot of these mechanisms, probably sewing together a lot of rats and mice and stuff. Like when Elon says, like, to be safe, we need a maximum curious AI, like AGI, ASI, artificial superintelligence, so that it's curious about humans and that it keeps us all, you know, here and happy. I'm like, what if it starts sewing us all together to learn about us? Like, I mean, I'm curious. I'm trying to be curious. Obviously, Dylan Curious is like what I'm building my brand around and stuff. Like, it's a healthy thing for humans to be curious, but when you're curious about how 2 rats get sewn together and like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, speaking of Elon, he's back up in the next news article. He's hosting a party. I'm actually not covering it because he hosted a party at OpenAI. That's just kind of his little troll thing. I'm covering it because Musk laid out his vision to beat closed for maximum profit AI, taking a jab at OpenAI. So I was just kind of curious what his more long-term vision is. So first off, he's trying to recruit top talent, and he emphasized that at XAI, unlike the other companies, he is a risk taker. They want a risk-taking environment. He emphasized fast-paced innovation, production, releases. All sound super dangerous to me, but of course everyone else is doing it, so you got to be faster than them. It's a race condition. Thanks to David Shapiro putting all those thoughts in my head. And he did say that the goal of the company was to do the same thing that DeepMind and OpenAI have said, which is to develop artificial general intelligence, AGI, and doing it in a way that makes it as benign as possible. I mean, that's obviously good. We definitely want it to be as benign as possible, so not military stuff. And making sure that it's accessible to the world, so he believes in the open source vision. He threw in that they have a goal of advocating AI safety and doing it ethically, which is also interesting. I don't know if I can talk about this, but I subscribe to the Patreon for Philip over at AI Explained, and this video is really good. I don't want to play any of it because this is like behind the wall content or something. You should subscribe to his Patreon if you want to see this. I'm going to just reference one little thing from it, but I recommend you do that. that. And at the bottom of this video, if you want to support me, there's my Patreon. And that is the way that I want to like fund like a lifetime or like a full-time creator job. Patreon is like only $6, $3, or I have a $15 tier. But yeah, in that video, he just points out a couple things that Sam Altman had said about releasing and like how the O1 model was like took a lot of time like to make sure it was really well aligned. We want to be really safe with it. But then there's some other evidence that he was like trying to push it out there without all that time. So it seems like Sam Altman's kind of giving different stories about how safe he wants to be to different people, and he probably is just like, he's probably really just thinks about AI is like, just get it out there, be the first to market, make the most money. I don't want to be the second place. I got a feeling Sam Altman doesn't care that much about safety. And even when Musk says those kind of things, it makes me wonder too. Or at least pushing things to market is not what they consider safety. They think about, maybe they think about safety in the way that they're built in the first place or something. But look, if you're second to market, you're just not going to make as much money. You're not going to push the envelope forward. So here we go. Then I want to talk about how big tech has no real mechanism for us to see what the risks are. And I think you guys kind of know that, but just to emphasize it, Facebook had done that research on like underage or people under 18 and like what Instagram was doing to them. And then they decided not to like release that. And then people had mixed signals. Like they want the information to be kind of muddy because it's better than having them be like directly attacked for evidence that they're harming people, right? And I don't even think of it as a nefarious like Elon or Mark Zuckerberg thing. It's just how that industry works. Like it's kind of like these people who build chemicals that get into our rivers. Like they want the evidence to be muddy for a while, or like smoking, like does it cause cancer in lungs? Like, I don't know, but you know, right? Like, you know, it does, but you're kind of like, but what about this thing? But I think it's good to know that Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, is influencing research on its own platform by funding studies that may skew the results. It's really just a modern day version of smoking, I think. A 2023 study funded by Meta claimed that Facebook's algorithm didn't significantly contribute to misinformation during the 2020 US election. But the critics argue that this itself was manipulated by Meta, temporarily changing its algorithm during the study. And the article just highlights the need for independent oversight. And I guess because I'm reading that new book by Yuval Harari, Nexus, and it's just right now talking about how the best networks like governments or social networks or religions have this mechanism built in for self-correction. Like the ones that are more authoritarian and have none of that become very stiff, right? And the ones that can kind of reward people for finding flaws or using logic or having extra discussions or to the best of their ability having democracy tend to give us the most truth. Like truth doesn't just come from these research. Like we have to have a mechanism that is like an honest, open thing. So I don't know. I guess I want to say greater oversight. It's not like I want the government to just be regulating social media either, because then they kind of get in bed with the wrong people. But somehow independent bodies that kind of check each other, that don't have to answer to the government, that maybe don't get paid and funded by Meta, the organization itself. Just somehow, if it is government funded, these other organizations that watch it as it's meant to be a protection for citizens, then their funding is like set separately and it is not dependent on their like outcomes. You know, mechanisms like that could be put into place. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to think about a lot as AI starts to like get out there. And clearly someone like Elon will say, oh, like, I can control the media to some extent because I have this social network that sort of does my bidding. And if Grok is out there creating things, he can write a different narrative. So how do we know? And same with Mark Zuckerberg, right? Or even with Google or any of these big companies. Like, how do we know that we can trust some of these things? Maybe they should be paying some kind of taxes that go into some kind of funding mechanism that they have to pay no matter what the outcome is or something. And then that is independently verified. But having a good conversation about it is important. That's why I wanted to bring it up. But I'm also super thankful for the 6,000 views I got on my video yesterday. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this video did fairly well. If we dive into the analytics here, you can see it's kind of like on the upper end of how many views I've had for the amount of time that it's out there. I'm super grateful when I get 41 new subscribers. Already made like, you know, we'll round up to $20 on the video. The typical retention is a little bit more than normal, so that's cool. And it looks like you didn't like clicking on the thumbnail without text on it, which I guess I am starting to see that as a pattern. You liked AI News or AI Our Final Invention a bit more than the no text version. Everybody's been discovering the video through the browse feature. Well, actually, I'll take that back. 7% from suggested videos is more than usual. Our female audience has moved up to 2%, so we're making some grounds there. Also, whoa, our 65? Wait, 7%? Why did 65-year-olds like this so much? Our final invention? I don't think I've ever seen 65-year-olds at 7%. That's great, because you're old enough to know my Final Fantasy VII reference, so that's awesome. Oh, and before we look at comments, just because of my sidebar over here, there are, like, I think 5 full episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks that you can watch on YouTube right now. So you don't even need to sign up for Paramount Plus to watch the full episode. Yeah, in fact, I just watched season 4, episode 1. And you know what's crazy about this episode is the Cerritos actually goes and sees the Voyager ship. Like, at this point in history, it's kind of a museum piece, but look, that's Janeway's ship. That's the USS Voyager that came from the Delta Quadrant. Isn't that cool that they have the ship on Lower Decks? In fact, most of the episode even takes place on USS Voyager, so it's pretty cool. All right, you know what? I'm going to be pissed if whale sharks get automated romance bots before we do. I mean, seriously? Actually, if you haven't watched my other episodes, because they have this, China has this, like, whale shark, and I was thinking, what if AI in the whale shark keeps getting upgraded and it has its own objective function to be smarter and smarter, and then the whale shark ends up being the first to AGI or ASI, and then it's like, the point of the planet is to service what the whale shark wants, and then we end up like in the paperclip setting, but it's actually like we all end up as humans, I guess, as slaves trying to like make life good for the whale sharks because they become the dominant species because their objective function is AI, and that's what the AI thinks that it is, and that's what it's like inputs are, and like the way that it sees the world is all through the idea of a whale shark. And I just had this like that'd be like a really interesting story. Maybe that's what David Shapiro should write his book about, like ASI occurring in a different species, and then humans are like, crap, actually whale sharks are now the dominant. Yeah, all right, we'll just modify that. I'm surprised Cornell had it made their bot resemble a paperclip. Put that in there. Anybody who makes a robot that actually makes paperclips and puts AI in it is asking for trouble. I can't even look at a paperclip like from an office setting without having, well, not nightmares, but it brings up that book back there. I'm like, whoa, paperclips. Oh, you know what? For my third comment, I'm going to put my comment from David Shapiro's video up because I might not have many videos to do that on now. Oh, I didn't see that one. Blink twice if Raspberry holds your wife hostage. Okay, so I wrote, you 100% inspired me. So grateful for all of your time, help, and guidance. You built such a great community. I learned so much from them also. Because I did. Like in his Discord and in his school community, I learned a lot. And you shared my content also when I had no following. Helped sparked my growth for sure. We'll throw that in there as a little bit of a different thing this time. Style of Star Trek? Is that a style of music, do you think? Maybe space? Yeah, we'll throw a guitar in there too. Why not? Yeah, I'm liking it so far. Ooh, wicked guitar.
I'm gonna be pissed if whale sharks get automated relationship bots before we do. I mean, seriously, I'm surprised Cornell hadn't made their bot resemble a paperclip. You 100% inspired me. So grateful for all your time, help, and guidance. You built such a great community. I learned so much from them also. You shared my content also when I had no following. Helped spark my growth for sure.
Okay, a little more intense than I expected, but yeah, very cool. I like the jam though. Dun 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 dun. Oh.
If whale sharks get automated relationship bots before we do. I mean seriously? I mean seriously? I mean seriously?
I mean seriously. All right, go ahead, subscribe to my Patreon if you want to support the channel, or click that join button on YouTube, same thing. Either one of them would super support the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.